Hey everyone, I'm Pastor Jay and welcome to Simple Church Online. Whether you missed last Sunday, you're checking us out for the first time, or maybe even watching out of state, we're so glad that you're a part of our community. And we're praying today that as you watch, God would use this to bless your life. Enjoy the message.
Anyway, we've been in Genesis for 10 weeks. We're finishing up Genesis. So if you've been here for 10 weeks, you will have gone through 50 chapters of the Bible together. And so if you haven't, go back and listen to it. This is the origin story of Christianity. This is the origin, not just of Christianity, but of life in general. And so it's really important to understand where we came from, to understand where we're going and where we're getting and all of those things. So if you haven't listened to it, go back, check it out, listen to the rest of the series. But I want to catch us up just a little bit on where we're at. So we're going to backtrack a little bit and then move forward. And so we walk through, Adam and Eve creation, all of those things. We walked through Noah and the flood. Then we got to Abraham, who's the beginning of the Israelite nation, the covenant from God, that Jesus would come from this lineage. And it's passed down to Isaac. And then it's passed down to Jacob, who gets the birthright in a sketchy way. And so we were studying a little bit of Jacob. He wrestled with God. God changed his name to Israel. And at that point, Jacob was going back to meet with his brother Esau, who he deceived. So he thought he was going to kill him. Ends up, Esau's like, "No, man, we're cool." And so they make up. And so Jacob, who's Israel now, that's where we get Israelites from, settles in the land of Canaan where his father was at. And so he's living here. He has 12 sons, as we talked about. One of them being Joseph, and before he has his 12th son, he has his 11th son, Joseph, and Joseph is his favorite. I don't have favorites. It's not true. I have favorites based on the day and their behavior, so just so you know that. So they would each claim to be the favorite. Parents don't have favorites, right? We love all the kids the same. This is not the case for Joseph. Israel, Jacob, he loved Joseph more. The Bible tells us that. He made him the coat of many colors, if you've heard about that. And so kind of like gave him this robe of like, hey, you're my favorite. The 10 brothers before him didn't love that. That's not their favorite thing, because the lineage and the age rank was really important back in the day. And so they already don't like Joseph because he's the favorite of his father. And then we find in chapter 37 that Joseph starts having some dreams. And as much as we're going to see Joseph doing things the right way, I would say he probably dealt with a little bit of pride because his dad loved him so much. And he probably dealt with a little bit of, I'm the baby, look at me, because this is before Benjamin came along. You know how babies are. I don't know if my baby brother's here today, but just spoiled brats. You know what I'm saying? I had to work for everything, and they're like, here's a car, just have fun, live life, whatever. And so he has these dreams, and he goes to his brothers. He's like, hey, guys, I had a dream that one day, basically, y'all are going to bow down to me. They didn't like that. Shocking that the younger sibling had that dream. And then he has another dream, and actually tells his whole family this time, that basically the sun and the moon and the 10 other or 11 other stars would bow down before him. And even Jacob at this point is like, dude, I may have messed up with this guy, because he's like, you're telling me we're going to be bowing down to you? And Jacob's like, yeah. Or Joseph's like, yeah, that's what the dream says. And so brothers weren't real happy with him. And so he goes out. I think he's about 17 years old, 18 years old. And he's going out. His brothers are tending flocks, and his dad sends him out to them. So he goes out to them. And as they see him in the distance, they're like, hey, let's kill him, like as brothers do. And so they have this discussion, and some of the other brothers are like, hey, let's not kill him. I don't want that blood on my hand. And so they're like, okay, well, let's just throw him in a well and say he's been killed. And so they hatch up all these plans, and all of a sudden some traveling gypsies come by, and they sell Joseph into slavery. And so Devin kind of talked about that a little bit last week and how we got into there. So again, what I never try to do with Scripture is just make it notes on a page. This was real. And as you read later into Genesis, you hear the pain that happened during that time. That some of the brothers were crushed by his screams as they took him away. So this is not just a, hey, Bible story and there's going to be a good outcome. This was real life. And can you imagine, prideful or not, the pain of being sold into slavery from your brothers. Listen, I have two younger brothers. I had some knockdown dragouts with them, right? I don't think, one's working back there, and I think one's gone today. So I was perfect. There's nobody in here right? We had some fights, but didn't ever think about selling them, right? This is crazy. This is not just some little passing thing. They literally ripped him from his family, from the dad who loved him so much, and sold him into slavery. I don't ever want us to miss that this is real, that this could have been the most defining moment for him, and it became it in a positive way, but this was really real for him. And I don't know what you're walking in here with. I don't know what pain someone has caused you. I can't pretend to know that. I don't know your story. I know my story. But some of you are in here with some very real pain caused to you. And you didn't ask for it, and you didn't deserve it, but it happened. And if that's you here today and you're sitting in that, I hope this can be an encouragement to you. I hope that God can speak to you, because he's got a plan even in your pain. And if you can begin to believe that, it will be life-altering for you. And so we see Joseph sold into slavery, and we already see where his headspace is at. He starts working really hard as a slave, and he works up to Potiphar's house. That's what we talked about last week. So Potiphar is governor there, and a big deal. And then Potiphar's wife, is kind of a not nice person, and she threatens him and tells him all the stuff that he tried to do things to her, and he ends up getting thrown into jail. And so that's what we talked about last week. That kind of catches us up where we're at. But I want you to see what happens. So wrongfully accused, sold into slavery by his brothers, and then wrongfully accused of rape by this woman. And you would think, being as great as he was, that Potiphar would at least ask him some questions about it, but that's not what happened. So chapter 39, starting in verse 19, it says this: Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about how Joseph had treated her. So he took Joseph and threw him into the prison where the king's prisoners were held, and there he remained. Stop there for just a second. So here's another moment. God, you got me sold into slavery, and now here I worked as hard as I could to do well even in slavery, and now you got me thrown in prison. Here's another moment for it to be life-altering for Joseph, to sit in his woes and stew in his woes, and to be honest, I wouldn't blame him. I'm like, yeah, I get it, man. Like, that's ridiculous. You've worked so hard, and here you are. Listen to this, verse 21. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love, and the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. He chose to go a different direction with this. Okay, I'm in prison. I'm going to make the most of this. I'm going to work as hard as I can. The warden basically gave Joseph his job. The warden's just chilling in there watching TV while he's running the whole prison. I don't know if they had TV, watching tablets. I don't know exactly what he was doing. Playing Sudoku. I feel like that's from ancient times. I have no idea. And so Joseph is basically in charge of the prison. So along comes the king's cupbearer and the king's chef, basically, and they get thrown into prison. The Pharaoh gets mad at them, throws them into prison. They start having these weird dreams. Well, just so, Joseph was kind of a dream teller. Like, he understood what dreams meant. Remember, he told his brothers all about it. And so they start telling him the dreams, and he's like, hey, I can tell you what that means. And so for the cupbearer, he says, it means that in a few years you'll be restored back to your place. And then the chief baker's like, hey, what about me? And Joseph's like, he's going to kill you. Sorry about that. And it comes to pass, and those things happen. And the cupbearer says, hey, when I get back to my position, I'm going to remember what you did for me in this prison, and I'll have Pharaoh set you free. And so sure enough, it comes along, the cupbearer gets restored to his position, and the Bible says he forgets all about Joseph, as people do. Here is another time for Joseph to say, dude, I told you your dream. I told you what was going to happen, and you told me you were going to go take care of me, and look what you did. You told me, now I'm stuck here in prison. For 2 more years, Joseph stayed in that prison after being told by the cupbearer that he would make sure that he was set free. Here's another opportunity for Joseph to say, why me? For him to Nancy Kerrigan the moment and be like, why? How many Nancy Kerrigan? How many people remember that? Hitting the knee? Yeah, that was the good old times back when. That's how I like my Olympians, just kind of clubbing each other around. That's the 90s. Do you guys know the 90s is making a comeback? I won't make my son stand up, but seriously, full 90s coming back. Jinko jeans, the whole thing. Stuff that shouldn't come back is making a comeback. Anyway. My son came to me because he wanted to change the style up a little bit, and he was like, "Hey, Dad, I'm gonna get a long sleeve white shirt, and I'm gonna put a polo over it." Like he was gonna blow my mind with this, and I was like, "So me in the '90s, like you're dressing like your dad in the '90s? Is that what you want?" But it's full back. I went to Old Navy with him, and sure enough, when you walk in, it's called '90s baggy. Like that's what's in right now. It's insane. So anyway, I've always said it's the greatest generation. But anyway, all that to say. Joseph is stuck in prison for 2 more years with the chance to woe is me all over again. But he continues to work hard. All of a sudden, Pharaoh begins having dreams, these bad dreams. And it's just wrecking his world. And he can't figure out what the heck is going on with these dreams. And so he's telling everybody about it. I asked them, what does this mean? What does this mean? Can somebody tell me? The cupbearer overhears Pharaoh, and he's like, oh, yeah. That dude I left in prison for 2 years is still there that told me about dreams. And so Pharaoh summons Joseph, and Joseph is able to come and say, well, this is what the dream means. It means that for 7 years you're going to feast. You're going to have all the crops that you need. You're going to have so much stuff. So he brings him again and says, well, this is the dream that I had. He says, okay, well, after those 7 years, you're going to have 7 years of famine. It's going to get really bad around here. The whole area is going to be overcome with famine. So you really need to store up, for these next 7 years, store up as much food as you can, prepare because there's 7 years of famine coming. And he said, you really need to get somebody in charge of this. Like, you need to be on it. You need a guy who can really manage all this stuff. And so they really listened to what Joseph had to say and said, hey, I really like what he has to say about this. So that catches us up to Genesis chapter 41, starting in verse 37. And it says this: Joseph's suggestions were well received by Pharaoh and his officials. So Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone else like this man, so obviously filled with the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you, clearly no one else is as intelligent or wise as you are. You will be in charge of my court, and all my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have a rank higher than yours. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and placed it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in fine linen clothing and hung a gold chain around his neck. Then he had Joseph ride in the chariot reserved for his second in command, and wherever Joseph went, the command was shouted, kneel down. So Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all Egypt. And Pharaoh said to him, I am Pharaoh, but no one will lift a hand or foot in the entire land of Egypt without your approval. You talk about God being faithful. But what I think is so crazy about this story is that at every turn, Joseph had a chance to just sit there and wallow in self-pity. He had an opportunity, rightfully so, to say, God, why? Yet instead of that, he just decided to live life and do the best that he could. Now he goes from being sold in slavery to being basically in charge of Egypt, the ruling body of the day. He was the second most powerful person basically in the entire world at this point. Can I tell you this? Leave room for God to do what he can do, even in the midst of your pain, in the midst of your problems, in the midst of someone doing you wrong. Leave room for God. There's no telling what God can do through your pain. Should you have to go through that? Probably not. We live in a fallen, broken world with fallen, broken people who do fallen and broken things. And I would never make light of anything you've walked through, because I know people in this room who have walked through a whole lot more than I've walked through. But I don't care if it's the smallest thing or the biggest thing that's ever happened to you. You have an opportunity to let God's glory even shine through that, whatever that thing is. And he can do that, but we have to allow him to. So as luck would have it, famine hits the land, just like Joseph had interpreted in the dream. 7 years they saved up, so Egypt has a ton of food and everything that they need because they're ready for this famine. Well, all the surrounding areas were not ready for this. And so what happens is everybody is now having to come to Egypt to get food. They're selling livestock or whatever and things to get grains and the stuff that they need to actually make food. And famine hits the land of Canaan. By this time, Joseph has had another son, Benjamin, and Jacob has had another son, Benjamin, so the 12th son. That's where we get the 12 tribes of Israel. And he is brokenhearted. He is hurt from the moment Joseph was gone. He's been in pain. And so he sends the 10 older brothers and keeps Benjamin there because he just can't stand to lose Benjamin as well. He sends them on to Egypt. Go get some grain, get some food. Here's some money, take it with you and bring some back. So here the 10 brothers roll up, and everybody had to go through Joseph. The 10 brothers get in front of Joseph and immediately recognizes them. This is years and years and years later. They don't know who Joseph is. He's dressed in all the Egyptian garb. They have no idea. Now, again, Joseph did some really good things. When you get a chance, read through the rest of the story because I don't have time to go to all the details. Can we be honest? He jacks with his brothers a little bit. Like, he could have just said, hey, guys, remember me? I forgive you. But instead, he messes with them. So he takes the money. He has the servants get them all the food. And then he takes the money that they gave him and puts it back in their bag to look like they took their money back. And so they're traveling back, and they're like, oh, man, the money's in here. They're going to think we stole it. So they go back to him, and he kind of picks on them a little bit and messes with them. And then he sends them back and says, hey, bring your younger brother back or I'm throwing you all in jail. And so they go back home. They tell their dad, Jacob, like, hey, he said that we have to go back with Benjamin. And Jacob's like, absolutely not. I can't lose another son. I don't care about you 10, but these other two, I kind of like them. They're for my favorite wife, which is just, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense now to us that made sense back then. He says, absolutely not. And they eventually talk him into it, take him back. And so Joseph gets to meet Benjamin, who's from the same mom. And he's kind of overcome with grief. He has to run away at one point and kind of cry and then gather his stuff and get back together. So he sells them some grain again. Before he does this, though, he brings them in to eat with him. And he sits at his table with his officials, and then he has a table for the brothers. And he seats the brothers around the table, and he does it in age order. And they're like, bro, you nailed that. Like, how did you do that? Not picking up on who he is. And so then he sends them away again. This time, he puts his special silver cup of the second in command in Benjamin's bag. So again, he jacked with his brothers a little bit. He's like, I'm getting back at you just a little bit. And so he sends them away, and then he sends his army to go like, hey, someone stole my cup. And they're like, I promise you, we would never do that. That's insane. Let the person who stole the cup be murdered. Like, we will not do that. And they're like, hey, Benjamin, you got anything in your bag? And he's like, no, sir. And like, they open the bag up, and sure enough, there's the cup right there. And so these brothers are devastated because the dad said, take him, but you better not lose him or I'll murder all of y'all. I don't care about you guys, right? And not that way, but it was like, what are we going to do? And so they're like, we got to take Benjamin back. And they're like, no, let us go back with them. And so they all end up going back. And so here you have the 11 brothers here. And Joseph finally gets to a place where he just can't stand it. So Genesis 45, it says this. Joseph could stand it no longer. There were many people in the room, and he said to his attendants, out, all of you. So he was alone with his brothers when he told them who he was. Then he broke down and wept. He wept so loudly the Egyptians could hear him, and word of it quickly carried to Pharaoh's palace. I am Joseph, he said to his brothers. Is my father still alive? His brothers were speechless. They were stunned to realize that Joseph was standing there in front of them. Please come closer, he said to them. So they came closer, and he said again, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into slavery in Egypt. Key verse. But don't be upset and don't be angry with yourselves for selling me to this place. Can I just stop there and say, Joseph's a lot better than me? I don't know if you remember the scene in Dumb and Dumber. This makes sense in my brain, but anyway. What I would have done, it's when they put the hot stuff on the guy's burger, and after he eats it and he falls to the ground, they go, ha! That's what I would have done. I would have been like, got y'all. You know who I am now? Yeah, I'm in charge, suckers. Yeah, it's going down. I would have made them dance for me. It would have been a whole thing. Now, I probably would have had them killed, but they would have been my servants, man. I would have been getting foot rubs every day. Actually, I don't want a foot rub from a dude. That's weird. But I would have had them, they would have been, bringing me drinks all day. They would have been serving me. Joseph says, don't be upset. Don't even be angry with yourselves that this happened. I've preached this story so many times. And in studying for Genesis, I really want to study some more in-depth stuff. And as I was reading over this, it stood out to me. I think that Joseph was able to easily forgive his brothers because he had been so focused on following God that he left no room for bitterness and anger and resentment to set in. He didn't have time for it. Okay, I got sold into slavery. You know what? I'm going to make the best of this. I'm going to serve as best as I can. I got thrown in jail. You know what? There's nothing I can really do about this. I'm going to move on. I'm going to start serving here as best as I can. My brothers are here. I can do anything that I want. You know what? I'm going to forgive them. It's crazy. He didn't spend his whole time after being sold in slavery scrolling through Facebook and Instagram. I hope they're getting theirs. I hope that, they deserve. You know what I'm talking about. Guilty. Please, God, let them get partially hit by a bus. Not bad. It's just, I like to be real up here about the things that I deal with. When people hurt me, I try to be loyal to people. I try to be as best as I can. When people hurt me, I want them to get theirs. That's fair. That's justice. And so I spend time thinking, plotting. What happens if I run into them? What am I going to do? I'm going to pants them. Whatever. I'm going to do something. We spend so much of our time giving up our future, thinking about this and that and what happened and what if. Joseph didn't do that. This is the hand that's been dealt me. I'm going to make the most of this, and I'm going to live my life. Can I give us some advice? Now, I'm going to get some godly advice here in just a minute, but let me just give you some raw advice that I need. Move on. Live your life. You being miserable about what somebody did to you is doing no good for you. They probably don't even know. Because most of the time when I look at the people who've hurt me, they're having fun. And I'm mad about that. And I'm not living my life because I'm so worried about what somebody else is doing. Get over it. This is the hand that was dealt you. Move on. Live life. Enjoy life. Focus on your family. Do it. That's what he did. And do you see how God redeemed? And he did what only he could do. And now he's second in command of Egypt. And he has the world at his feet. He didn't spend time dwelling on what should have been and the justice and the fairness. And this doesn't, where's the scale? That's why Scripture tells us leave room for God's justice. Leave room for him to do that. You go live your life. Not only that, he didn't just say, hey, don't be upset about this. I want you to understand the incredible things that he has to say. Go back to verse 5. He says this. But don't be upset and don't be angry with yourselves for selling me to this place. Here's the kicker. It was God who sent me here ahead of you to preserve your lives. This famine that has ravaged the land for 2 years will last 5 more years, and there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. God has sent me ahead of you to keep you and your families alive and to preserve many survivors. So it was God who sent me here, not you. And he is the one who made me an advisor to Pharaoh, the manager of his entire palace, and the governor of all Egypt. Not only did he forgive them, he said, listen, this really didn't have anything to do with you guys. They sold him into slavery. His own brothers ripped him from his family, completely uprooted his life, changed everything about his life that was going on at that point. Teenager. He's so focused on God and living his life that he says, it wasn't even you guys who did this. God did it. God sold me into slavery. You want to talk about someone who's living life and being fulfilled in God, to be able to say that even in the midst of the worst pain I've ever experienced, God does. Lord, let me be like Joseph. He was so focused on what God had for him that he didn't have time to worry about these other things. And because of that, his future was not robbed. There's so many people who are sitting here today, your future has been robbed because you're holding on to something from the past. And instead of letting God have it and take it and move on and focus on the things that he has for you, you have just settled and you still live in that place from 20, 30 years ago, maybe. Can I tell you today to let God free you from that? Can I tell you that if you'll allow him, he'll use that for his glory? You know, again, my pain's different from your pain, but we've all walked through something. And when I left the church that I was at before this, it rocked my world. I lost some friendships. I had really thought that God was working things out there and that we were going to stay there. And I tried my best to hold it all together. I thought, and it just fell apart. And I was broken, man. It's the most down I've ever been. My mom was diagnosed at that point, and it just was the worst time of my life. And I've shared the story. I shared it at our anniversary this summer of God calling me to start this church and just being like, no, and him being like, no, yeah, you are. I said so. And I'm like, we did that tussle, and then he won, as he always does. And I talked to several people, and several people were like, no, it's way too soon. You're too hurt. You can't start a church. I had a couple people, a couple pastors say, hey, you're not hearing right from God. You need to knock this off. And I look back now, and I think that God understood that if I stopped in that moment, that if I didn't do something for the kingdom, that would have been a defining moment for my faith and my life. I think I would have stopped. I think I would have got out of ministry. I think I would have just been stuck for the rest of my life maybe. And God in his goodness pushed me to start this church. And I think that was the thing that I was so focused on. I want to see a church that just loves Jesus, that I didn't have time. Now, did I wrestle with things? Did I have a lot of hurt to work through? Absolutely. But God in his glory gave me something to focus on, something to put my heart towards, something to go after to help me get through that. And I stand here today not healed and whole, not totally forgiving everybody, but at a place where I don't hold resentment towards anybody. And it's only because focusing on the things that God has for me. Now, I wish that I could say it's every day it's perfect. There's days when I still scroll. There's days when I still want them to get theirs, right? But that's very quick and short now. And let me just say this lastly as I kind of wrap up here. And I'm going to go into this later. But I want you to hear this. It's also forgiving yourself. There's some of you who are so stuck in your past. You're robbing God of your future by you holding on to something he's already forgiven you for. And today's the day to let that go. God's already forgave you, man. As far as the east is from the west, you got to forgive yourself. God has plans for you. Plans for you to prosper. Plans for a future. That's for everybody always. And it doesn't matter what the thing is. We get this these big moments in our life of the good happening and the promotion and the whatever, and it's easy to see God's for me, man. He's with me. He's going to do something. But it's in those moments in the valley where it's like, okay, now I have to come to terms with, is this God? Now, does he cause this pain? Absolutely not. Will he allow us to walk through it for our better? Absolutely he will. And so it's in those moments when I'm down in the depths that it becomes real for me. What do I believe about God? Can he take this darkest, worst moment of my life and actually do something with it? And when I change my mindset to say, yes, he's the God who's able to do anything. He's the God who sacrificed for me. He's the God who forgave me when I didn't deserve it. He's the God who continues to forgive me when I act like an idiot, right? Yeah, no, he can do anything with any situation. And when I start to approach life that way, it completely changes everything. Do my human emotions come in? Do I get frustrated? Do I get frustrated when people leave our church and I didn't get connected? You didn't do anything to do it. Yeah, see, obviously I do get frustrated, right? But I'm able to say, you know what? Let it be, God. Hopefully they go find a place that they are amazing at and they do fantastic there. I'm able to release that. It's not about me and it's not even about the things that I go through. It's only about God and His glory, and however He wants to work that, I want Him to work it through for His good. Even if it's through pain that I have to walk through now, I want to say that. And when we can get to that place, that's when God can say, okay, I can really do something with you. Because now it doesn't matter what comes against you, you're going to let God use you. That's the place to be. For some of you, you've been caught up in this whole life. You've been stuck in a moment really because of something that happened to you. I want to read one more thing here. Genesis 50, it's the last chapter. Let's kind of close this out. So eventually Jacob moves, the whole family moves to Egypt. That's how we get the 400 years of slavery, because the whole family had to move there. And unfortunately, then they become slaves after Joseph dies and all that stuff. But Jacob moves back. Family's all reunited. They're overwhelmed with joy. Joseph gets to live Jacob's last remaining days there in Egypt with him. Beautiful story. Jacob dies. Now, these brothers who have lived there are like, everything's cool because Dad's here. Well, as soon as Dad dies, they get together and they're like, hey, it's been cool, but Dad's not around anymore. He's definitely going to kill us. And so one more time, they go before Joseph, worried that he's going to do something. In verse 19, he says this. So they're like, listen, we're your slaves. Please don't kill us, blah, blah, blah. Joseph says this. Don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. That is the story. That's what fixes this whole thing. He's like, stop worrying, because I already told you, it's not about me. I'm not God. I don't have the right to punish you. I've made my mistakes and He forgave me. I don't have the right to do that. This is for His glory. He did this so that lives could be saved. God, help me to have that mentality when I face and encounter people and problems. And what it will do is fundamentally change the way that you view this world, the way that you interact with people, and the way that God's name is said outside of these walls. And we're about to jump into a series. I'm going to talk about that at the end. We're about to jump into a series that's really important, because it is, let me just get preachy for just a second. It is high time for Christians to actually start living up to the name of Christ. And that means when we face tough situations, when we face people coming against us, as Jesus told us they would, they will hate you because they hated me. And when we face people coming against us, we stand up strong. We say, to God be the glory. You work it only the way that you can. I'm going to forgive them because you forgave me. It's time for Christians to step up and actually believe that. It's time for Christians to hold their heads up high when they walk through stuff. When they go through stuff that doesn't make sense, when they face an illness, when they face brokenness, that they hold their heads up and say, you know what, to God be the glory, because He's going to do something with this. A world out there needs to see that we actually believe this, that we can actually stand in the face of persecution and hatred and anger and say, you know what, bring it, because to God be the glory. He forgave me, I'm forgiving you. That's what we need. Now, this is for the next series coming up, so be ready for that. But I'm serious. If you've been at Simple Church, you know we're not playing the church game. It takes you nowhere. We've seen this happen now for about the past 15 years, that this little feeble, immature gospel that doesn't change lives does nothing to actually help you and affect you in your life. And it's time for it to go away. It's time for real Christians to stand up and say, I'm placing my faith on the Word of God, and I'm going to start living that way. Imperfectly as I do it, I'm going to live as best as I can for God and His glory. Amen. And if you don't want to do that, there's a lot of great churches out there who make it really easy, okay? It's true. We were doing so good. Listen, you know my heartbeat if you've been here. I just want people to know Jesus. I want them to really see that He can change their life. That it really can. This can be life-changing. It's not some utopia that I preach about that just, oh, maybe this could. No, you can truly have the power of the Holy Spirit living through you to help you raise kids, to help you make decisions, to help you have a great marriage, to help you be a great friend, to help you be a great example of Christ out there. That can really happen. We've just been fed a bunch of bull that this is how life is, and that's not true. This is for next week. I got to move on. I love what I get to do. I love this church. I love you guys. I've said this before, and I hope you know this. Golly, we did so good. I would not be here. And I do not know what my life or my family would look like if this church had not existed. And sure, I was called to start this church, but it's only because of the people of this church. I love you guys so much. Can I just tell you, from my experience, let God move you forward. It's miserable to live in this place of hatred and anger and frustration. It's miserable. Let God move you forward. He has a plan, even for the pain you're going through, if you'll release it to Him. And that's my prayer for you, that if you're walking through that today, God will release you from that.
Once again, thank you for stopping by today. We'd love for you to be a part of our family at one of our services. You can find out all of our information at simplechurchtulsa.com, and we'd love to pray for you any way we can. So please message us, and we hope you have a great week.